Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sword Art Online God of War commentary.
Okay, so we're done with the Sword Art Online tangents, I promise. What's the big-ass arch that we just activated, though? Like, what is all of this?
Okay, so you know the whole thing in Ocarina of Time where you shoot the arrow into the sun to get the fire arrows?
Oh.
It's kind of like that.
Oh. Interesting.
We basically just need a way to get into the big temple to get the light thingy.
I see. Oh, so like you shoot an arrow through the V's and arc them through the entire thing, right?
What does it
sort of.
Without me or within me, death is sure.
Riddle me this, Kratos. What's always coming, yet never actually arrives.
Yep, it's water, all right.
Breath of the Wild 2 for the Nintendo Switch.
Close, but no cigar.
Ah, damn it.
The answer is tomorrow.
You're telling me Breath of the Wild for the Switch comes out tomorrow?
No, the answer for what is always coming but never actually arrives is tomorrow.
I know, that's the joke. That's the.
It's hard to tell when I can't see your face about it.
If you could see my face, you would definitely know, because I've got the worst poker face known to man.
I wonder. I can't help but wonder what it is they're keeping under wraps regarding
the name.
Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah, the name specifically.
It's stupid because they say, "Oh, if we reveal the name, it'll be too spoilery." I'm like, but we're still going to have to know the name before it comes out.
The voices I heard.
Like,
will they
It
though?
was hard to make out. But when
Yeah, they kind of have to. If it's called something else, they're going to have to tell us what it's called.
The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild sequel, now in development.
For Nintendo Switch.
he looks different. Look at those horns.
which of course means it'll come on the whatever the next console is in 5 years.
That can't be good.
So more Dark Elves to fight.
Ah, excellent. Just what I needed to get my mind off of Sword Art Online. Dark Elves. There are Dark Elves in Sword Art Online.
Are the Dark Elves as lame as they are in most other things?
No, I promised I wouldn't talk about this.
It feels like in most stuff, the Dark Elves are just kind of lame.
It's funny because Kirito chooses the Dark Elves
Okay.
purely because they dress the way he likes.
Well, he wasn't a Dark Elf in Alfheim. There weren't any elves in Alfheim, but he did pick that particular fairy race because of the, black clothes. Spriggans it was. But, like, okay, very briefly, the Dark Elf race in Aincrad is a progressive series thing, and it leads to one of the most interesting arcs in that series, so, yeah.
Anyway, back to God of War.
Back to God of War, yes.
So, yeah, we have to get involved in a Dark Elf versus Light Elf war thingy going on, and it's a little complicated, and Kratos kind of is like, can we please just not?
This is like exactly the kind of thing I moved to the forest to get away from.
I really do not care about these elves. Can we please?
that is literally Kratos' entire attitude towards it. It's like, I just want to get the light and go the fuck home. I do not care about any of you people.
And, you know, as amusing as that kind of attitude is, I can't help but think that in a bit of a slightly unreasonable dislike of narrative storytelling in modern games, some gamers celebrate the nonchalant hero a little too enthusiastically.
It's a pretty popular trope that's been around since at least the mid-2000s, if not. I feel like it was kind of a thing that was popular in, like, parody webcomics and stuff like that, that just kind of migrated its way into proper games.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
I think the problem mostly stemmed from a lot of the heroes in a lot of games, particularly RPGs, were a little too goody-good for a lot of players' liking, especially early on.
I kind of get that, but at the same time, what I'm talking about more is, like, the reaction to Doom Guy. Like, I'm entirely on board with finding Doom Guy from the modern Doom games entertaining, but what I'm not entirely on board with is the line that some people talk where it's so good that we don't have all this character development dragging the game time down.
Yeah, no, that's like, honestly, like, his character development is interesting and well done. Like, he's not just, like, I'd say a bad instance of that would be, like, who's that fucking, what's that game called? The one that, Dante May Cry. Yeah, like that.
DMC Devil May Cry.
Yeah, that one I would say is an instance of, like, oh, he's, like, just, like, an asshole about everything. It's like, oh, I don't care what's going on. And it's like,
well,
no.
they tried to have a character arc for Dante in that game. That basically amounted to him starting out not caring about the world and eventually learning to, like, be empathetic and be its protector and all of that. It just didn't land because, one, the character himself was insufferable and there wasn't really enough character development to offset that. Two, they had a different character in mind entirely when they first started writing that game, and the character that they landed on when they tried to make him more like canon Dante was not a very good one. And three, because they focused his entire reason for starting to care about the world on a dumb romance plot with an underdeveloped character. So,
oh yeah, the laziest way to make a quote unquote bad boy character become more of a reasonable person. Oh, because I like a girl.
One of the added scenes in the definitive edition at the end to make the ending seem less cliffhangery, because they knew they wouldn't have a sequel at that point, so they wanted a more ending-like ending, was him walking away with Kat after the fight with Virgil, and he puts his hand on her butt and she giggles, and yeah, that's the end. That's where that story ends, on Dante putting his hand on Kat's butt. I can't think of a more appropriate
romantic.
I can't think of a more appropriate place for that story to end, to be honest. But you know,
Okay. Tricky. Very tricky.
punch. But like, okay. The oh, I see one of the runes. I think
Yeah, we're just setting things up at the moment.
this is an interesting puzzle where you kind of have to stop the gear with the axe.
Think that
Yeah.
side hallway will get us to the temple?
We will find out.
I do like the mechanic of using the axe to stop certain mechanisms and having to deal with not having the axe while you're in that state. Kind of also mechanically explains partially their decision to leave the Blades of Chaos until much later in the game, so that you would have this point where you didn't have an easy weapon to fall back on. Ryan could be using the Blades of Chaos right now if he
But I'm
wasn't.
not going to.
Yeah, if he wasn't sticking to the rule of not using them until the game actually gives them the weapon.
How late into the game do you get the Blades of Chaos?
Fairly late.
I will say that is a cool thing that I appreciate games doing, is like switching up the status quo to make the experience feel fresh. One good example I can think of is in Metroid Dread. They don't give you the morph ball until you're like 3 hours into the game. And
That
like,
felt super awkward as a result.
yeah, it was weird, but honestly, the game played better without the morph ball because it taught you to use the slide, and the slide's just way better than the morph ball, like 80% of the time.
It also diversified the crouching spaces so that like different ones had a different navigational value to you. By which I mean the morph ball is necessary for any crouching space that you have to climb into, or any crouching space that isn't like exactly level with ground that you can walk on, or underwater crouching spaces because you can't slide underwater. But the slide is good for any crouching space that is level with the ground, which effectively makes some of them one-way passages.
Yeah, there's a lot of spots where you'll slide through a thing, and then there's like a drop-off point at the end, so you can't slide back. It also just really improved the flow of the game, too, because you don't have to stop and then double crouch and then move over and then go back to running. The game just has a much cleaner feel.
Dude, Atreus is badass. Kratos throws an axe into the guy that's holding him, and Atreus lands on the ground across the way and is immediately back to the fighting. Like, he's got his bow out and everything. That's... okay, kid. Pretty impressive. Did this
Dunk.
area...
Power dunk.
Did this area effectively force you to use your fists?
Yeah, because it forces you to go into the rage mode.
Ah.
Mash the button. Squish.
Are those the elves?
Yeah.
With the okay, that's a cool design. For
These are
elves.
the dark elves.
That's a
Typically
cool design for
speaking-
the dark elves. That's a lot cooler than an elf, but with dark skin.
Typically speaking, portrayals of elves in like Norse mythology, at least when it's done properly, are a lot different from the elves that you generally see in D&D and Lord of the Rings inspired stuff nowadays. They're more like fae, to be honest, like a lot more otherworldly looking.
Well, I
Like-
mean, I guess so, but also Fae are also like just evil in most instances, or at the very best.
Oh yeah, well,
tricksters,
when I say fae, I'm thinking more like Kingdoms of Amalur fae, where they basically are just fancy looking elves. That's another game that I need to play again soon.
The Kingdoms of Amalur. Who made that game?
I don't remember like who the lead was, but I know that like it was an amalgam of people from both different mediums and different games. Like some of the game designers worked on Elder Scrolls. I'm pretty sure Todd McFarlane was on art. Not sure who else was involved, but it was one of those
Frank
like
Kirkhope did the music for Kingdom of Amalur, which is
Yeah.
like a strange fit when you think about it. But
it was like one of those.
elves jamming down to banjo music.
It was like one of those games where it was a combination of different people from different like mediums and stuff all working together on something creative. Whereas like it feels like it was trying to be a passion project more than a marketable game, and as a result of that, it has a lot of charm, but it's also like not the most well put together game in other areas. So, like, I highly recommend playing it. It's a really good game, but it's also not a really good game in all of the areas you would want it to be, if that makes sense.
it is something I've been interested in and would be in. It looks like something that would be worth trying out at some point. I'm sure that it's fairly cheap too because it was like a 360 PS3 game.
Well, they released a remaster of it fairly recently. I actually won it from East Starland in a giveaway.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I got that one for free. I did stream a bit of it when I got it.
Is the remaster good? Because I know that some of those can be hit or miss.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much just a straight port, to
Okay.
be honest. The game already like has a PC version that runs fine, but the remaster's on PC too. I don't think the remaster did exceptionally well, but I don't think it did exceptionally poorly either. Just a re-release of a fairly oldish game at this point.
That makes sense.
But I like Kingdoms of Amalur specifically because it has kind of like... Its gameplay is kind of similar to Fable, but its story is less jokey than Fable. That's one thing that I could never quite get around with Fable, is that, like, the game is all about, like, you're this hero with choices, and you get to choose, and you develop your character, and you make moral choices along the way, but it's all super jokey in its presentation.
I mean,
in
I
that-
guess they're just trying to keep it lighthearted, which is
Well,
fair,
yeah,
but
at the same time, like, a major part of the second game's ending is based around this character called Reaver, who is simultaneously, like, the biggest asshole and also one of the major heroes that you need to beat the game. So, and then he comes back, but even more for the third game. And, like... Nothing involving Reaver is ever allowed to be serious. It's all, like, jokey in a really creepy way.
oh, okay. I think I get what you're getting on about.
Yeah. But I guess, like, that's just a small part of what bugs me about Fable. It's like, I can't quite feel seriously invested in the fantasy world it's presenting because it's constantly describing things with weird British dry humor all over the place,
Watch our
and
back way.
I don't know. I guess the point is, Kingdoms of Amalur gives me a game that sort of plays like Fable in that third-person action RPG sense, but it also gives me a game with a world that mostly takes itself seriously, without necessarily being uber serious like the game we're looking at now.
That makes sense, yeah.
I did it! You brought the main bridge back.
I guess it'd be like if Kingdoms of Amalur were Jak and Daxter, and Fable were something like... what's a good platformer analogy?
Ratchet and Clank? Question mark?
Maybe, yeah. Ratchet and Clank is very satirical. Constant humor, but... satire with a point. So it's not a perfect comparison. I actually quite like the way Ratchet and Clank handles it.
Maybe this will spit us out on top.
You know, here's a better comparison. It's like if... It's like comparing Fallout to the Outer Worlds. Where the Outer Worlds is constantly in joke mode. Yeah. And I like the Outer Worlds a lot, don't get me wrong, but it is constantly in joke mode. You're not really supposed to take that universe too seriously. The joke is that it's so crazy that if it actually were real, you'd seriously question the mental health of everyone involved.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I like Fable as well. I really like the Fable series. I just... It doesn't have that feeling that I generally look for in a fantasy RPG.
So here's a fairly interesting axe-throw puzzle. We have to do it the vertical version to get through the narrow door.
What does that mean?
Because you can throw it either horizontally or vertically.
Oh.
So you have to throw it a certain way to get through, and it's more specific that way.
I didn't realize there were two angles you could throw the axe at. That's actually pretty interesting, yeah.
I didn't realize that either.
The horizontal one is more for coverage, while the vertical one will embed itself into the enemy and freeze them in place.
Ah.
And that's the one you had to use to freeze the poison thingies in the other part?
You could do either or for like environmental things.
Okay.
Environmental things it usually doesn't care that much.
You're just waiting for it to reset itself because you already screwed up the second throw.
Yep. Ding dong.
Look at Kratos here, Hayden side quest, but if there's a treasure chest to open, he'll throw his axe at anything for an hour to try to get it to work.
Boy has to learn his priorities.
And he doesn't even get all the cool stuff in it. He grabs the bag of jelly beans and leaves. What a dick.
I don't know why, but that just put me in the mind of Silent Hill.
Why, do you just ignore most of the stuff in the treasure chest?
No, because there's a literal bag of jelly beans in one of the last areas where there's a key item inside it.
You know, it's a good thing that was Silent Hill and not Resident Evil, because if Chris found that bag of jelly beans, he'd just eat it and swallow whatever key item's in there. Just like, oh, how do I get through this? How do I do this puzzle where I have to put the 3 colored gems into the 3 colored slots in order to open the door?
I thought they were jelly beans. Oh, Chris.
Well, time to wait 12 hours for Chris's bowels to move. Anybody got any fun books they've read lately?
Make a run to Taco Bell. That'll get them out real quick.
If they could run to Taco Bell, then why would... Oh, wait, no, never mind. The zombies also took over Taco Bell. That's fair. Doesn't change operation that much.
Oh, we can make God of War belly wrap.
So the shops, they're essentially like once you get the second shopkeeper, it's basically the same shop, right?
Yeah, there's no difference between the two.
Do they have the same stuff?
Yeah, it's just for personality flavor.
Okay.
So the guy's talking about how his skills are better than his brother's. That was all just hot air.
Yeah, it's just a joke because they're the exact same.
Oh, look at this man of culture maxing out the luck stat. There we go. We know who's up.
I'm also now at level 8 Kratos. Da, 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 da.